Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down a news report that covers nationwide anti-ICE protests. We're going to look at what's happening on the streets, a really tragic fatal encounter, and the political firestorm that just exploded afterward.
Okay, so the report we're diving into today kicks off with a Fox News alert. You've got protests against ICE just flaring up all across the country. The source we're looking at highlights some pretty tense scenes in places like Los Angeles, Austin, and especially Minneapolis.
And it's Minneapolis where the story really zooms in. A huge demonstration is going down, and for the reporters there, the scale of it and even the location immediately brought back memories of the George Floyd protests from 2020.
And we're talking big numbers here. According to the report, the Minneapolis police said there were well over 1,000 protesters packed into Powderhorn Park. After that, a number of them started marching down Lake Street, which, if you remember, saw some serious damage back during the 2020 riots.
Now, to really get a feel for the mood on the ground, the report includes interviews with some of the protesters. One person put it this way: they believe ICE isn't there for criminals, but to incite chaos, and they were adamant that it has to be stopped.
You hear a similar sentiment from another protester, who said their motivation really comes from their family and their community. They just said, pretty simply, "I'm here to stand up for what I think is right, and we as a community are here together."
So what happened after all this? Well, the report gets into the aftermath. It details 29 arrests, damage to a couple of local hotels, and one police officer getting injured after, and you can't make this up, being hit with a piece of ice.
Okay, so from this big picture view of the protest, the report then narrows its focus way down to a single, really tragic incident: the fatal shooting of a woman named Renee Good by an ICE agent.
The source says new video shows exactly how this fatal encounter went down. So first, you see an SUV trying to block the street. Then, the car's horn just starts blaring over and over. And then, an ICE agent fires their weapon. So why would the agent react that way? Well, to provide some context, the report includes this explanation from a Border Patrol source on the ground. They basically say that for an agent, getting blocked in by a car is a really dangerous situation because it means they could get surrounded in seconds. And this is where the story shifts, right? It moves from the streets right into the political arena, and it focuses on a string of accusations from a local congresswoman, Ilhan Omar. And wow, the language used here by Representative Omar is incredibly strong. She accuses the administration of making people disappear, and she warns that when people are disappeared in the darkness, American democracy dies.
So what was her main accusation? Well, as the source lays it out, the core of her complaint was that she and other representatives were totally blocked from entering an ICE facility. In her words, they were denied full access.
All right, so after those pretty serious accusations, the report brings in the official response from the Department of Homeland Security, which, you might have guessed, directly pushes back on the Congresswoman's claims. And this slide right here really lays out the core of the disagreement. You've got two completely different versions of the exact same event. Representative Omar says she was denied full access, but DHS says the whole visit was improper and out of compliance. So what's the DHS rebuttal based on? Well, according to the source, it all comes down to a specific rule. They claim that for members of Congress to visit an ICE facility, they need to give at least 7 days' notice, a rule they say just wasn't followed here.
Okay, so to wrap it all up, the report concludes with the show's hosts offering their own analysis. They try to connect all the dots between the protests, the shooting, and this whole political dispute.
So here's how the hosts piece it all together. They don't just see this as a political disagreement. No, they frame the Congresswoman's actions as direct incitement. They accuse her of fueling the protests with what they call a totally false narrative of defending criminals, and they even try to link her actions to a totally separate fraud investigation happening in the city. And to back this up, one of the hosts points to a pretty startling statistic. They argue that this kind of anti-ICE rhetoric, as they call it, has led to a real-world 13% increase in assaults on federal agents and their vehicles. So when you boil it all down, the entire report builds to this fundamental question about the line between words and actions. It draws a pretty direct path from political rhetoric to protests and even violence. And the question it leaves us with is a big one. How much does what our leaders say really shape what happens on our streets?